The Amazon is burning in Brazil at a record rate. Forest fires are raging in the rainforest. There have been nearly 73,000 fires this year already, a more than 80% increase compared to last year. Environmental groups are blaming right-wing President Jair Bolsonaro. They say he has loosened environmental regulations and encouraged loggers and farmers to clear the land, accelerating deforestation. Well, Bolsonaro has struck back, claiming that NGOs might be starting the fires themselves to make him look bad. He was pressed once again today, and again he cited no evidence.
Do you want me to blame the indigenous? The Martians? There are strong suspicions it's because the NGOs lost their funding.
Strong suspicions based on what?
There's no proof. Nobody writes, "I'll set fire to that." If you don't catch someone red-handed setting the fire, then look for those who ordered it. It's a crime.
Could it be the farmers?
Yes, everyone is a suspect, but the biggest suspects are the NGOs.
Now, the raging fires covered Sao Paulo, which is home to more than 12 million people, under a blanket of smoke so thick it blocked out the sun. We see video here of how Brazil's biggest city was plunged into darkness in the middle of the day. And there were also reports of black rain in Sao Paulo. A Twitter user posted a photo here of what she says is a glass of rainwater, and you can see it looks more like something from a dirty puddle. Let's get some analysis on the story. Now we have Malika Veerasamy with us. She's a researcher at Berlin's Humboldt University. She's an expert on sustainability and conservation, and she's currently researching how to prevent deforestation. Hi, Malika. Thank you for joining us. Put this into context for us. How significant is the situation that we're seeing on the ground in the Amazon right now?
As you just pointed out, this is an 80% increase from normal levels. And I think the forest fires are manifestations of the governance level issues in Brazil right now that's encouraging organized crime and killing of indigenous people. In 2018, we saw every week 3 indigenous people, that's every week, being killed for protecting their ancestral land. So what that means is that these fires have huge implications for biodiversity and the people living in the forest.
I do want to ask you more about the governance, but tell us what those implications are, first of all, for biodiversity. Why is this such an important land?
As you know, the Amazon basin is very rich in biodiversity and has important forest climate feedback. So any impacts on the forest has climate implications and of course biodiversity implications because of it's a rich hotspot for biodiversity. Now forest fires are rare in the Amazon, but during the dry season, people exploit the dry conditions to set fires for forest clearing, for farmlands and cattle pastures. So what you're getting is that the current governance situations and very warm conditions in Brazil is encouraging more people to set more organized crimes, especially for forest clearing.
So what do you mean by organized crime? Who do you say is behind this?
So there's a huge land market in Brazil for clearing land and legalizing these lands for farming and cattle ranching. So I'm not talking about farmers. Of course, some of the fires are caused by farmers themselves, but much of it is what you call guerrillas, the people who are looking for land to convert into cattle ranching and farmland. This is a business that's happening in Brazil, and the current governance situation is encouraging that kind of business model.
You keep saying the current governance situation. Are you pointing the finger directly at the president, Jair Bolsonaro? Environmentalists say he has loosened a regulation, environmental regulation. Can there really be a direct link made between his policies and what we're seeing?
I think there can be a direct link. I think he is dismantling environmental laws, and he is, and in particularly, he's undermining indigenous rights because he knows that indigenous people have been protecting those forests. So this double actions is really dangerous for the Amazon right now.
What can countries like Germany, for example, do here to help the situation?
I think recently we saw the suspension of German aid for the environment, and we clearly see that this has no effect.
It didn't work, no.
It didn't work. I think what we see is that the only actions that can really work is to work with the trade deal, trade agreement. Now, the trade agreement between the EU and the Mercosur country clearly says that both parties need to respect the United Nations Convention framework for climate change. Clearly, with everything that's happening in Brazil, even before the trade agreement, with all the things happening, the trade agreement was still signed. And now that we see the acceleration of the actions on the ground, the dismantling of environmental laws and especially on indigenous people, we see that the trade deal is even more dangerous. So what we are asking is for Angela Merkel to work with EU government to block this trade deal until governments like Bolsonaro's government are able to show commitments to the Paris Agreement, and particularly to the rights of indigenous people.
You're talking about economic pressure here. Just very, very briefly, Jair Bolsonaro says his government doesn't have the resources to fight these fires. Do you believe that?
No, because I think we saw in the past that INPE, the space agency, have done amazing work. In fact, we have seen that nowhere in the world where they are doing live monitoring of deforestation and immediate enforcement. So this has happened in the past. I don't know what has changed right now economically for Bolsonaro to say that they don't have the resources to do it.
All right, Malika Veeraswamy from Berlin's Humboldt University. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you, Sumi.